All right, so we are here for the very first CSM20 campaign video from Oz. This is the second time, or he's been CSM 2 times already. We served together on CSM18. Last year, he had to do it without me on 19. And let's see if we can make it on there in 20 together.
Yeah, such a pity. And I just have to start with saying first, right? First. That's it.
So, for those who don't know who you are, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell a little bit about your EVE history.
Yeah, I'm, I'm 44 years young. I've been playing this game for 20 odd something odd years. When this game came out, I was already out of college, and I've been always focused on the trading or finance part of EVE. I love the economic simulation. Absolutely adore the player run economy, all that stuff. And about 5 or 6 years ago, I started streaming that on Twitch. So I started switching from trying to make as much money as possible to sharing secrets and teaching people how to trade on Twitch. And that took off. Absolutely loved it. And then that led into me building tools for EVE Online, sharing my dashboards and my spreadsheets. I have had several presentations at EVE FanFest. CCP uses my trade guides in the academy, and I have designed the EVE Online themed case for the World Championships of Microsoft Excel Esports in Las Vegas, which is the pinnacle of my life, obviously.
Yeah, that was mind blowing. I watched that on YouTube, and I cannot believe people actually do that type of thing.
Yeah, amazing.
So,
what a time to be alive.
I know, right? So for CSM20, do you have any campaign points this year, or are you building off of last year?
Yeah, so I think for the past 2 years, my focus has been very much on keeping the economy stable or fixing parts of the economy that weren't stable. So as one example is the money supply. So I think when I joined the CSM 2.5 years ago, I think we were in a period of time where money supply was rapidly increasing compared to the history of EVE. And that had to do a little bit with ISK faucets being a bit out of control in certain parts of space, and also CCP not taking advantage of the ISK sinks as well as they could have. And so I think that was my big thing coming in, and that's something that we have stabilized over the years. But that is obviously, because it's been such a big part of my mission, is something that I want to keep doing and keep an eye on. And I feel like I'm very much well equipped to do that because I am a very independent force in EVE Online. I think I've been noticing that over the last few years, and especially the 2 years on the CSM. So EVE CCP always listens to one side or the other side, and then a lot of times they run things by me to kind of understand whether I think it's good for the EVE economy, or whether I think it could be good for the neutral players, or from a top-down point of view. And that's a role that I thoroughly enjoy and I work hard for, and that's a role that I want to continue playing. So I think one big thing I want to do is keep the EVE economy stable and make sure that we don't have, on the one side, rampant inflation going on, but on the other side also have enough is going around for everyone to be able to live out their virtual dreams in EVE Online, so to speak. A second part that is important to me is, I think we're on a very good path after the March 18th patch to get mining back to where it should be, where people have fun mining, and people not only mine in barges, but they actually mine in rorquals, and we get big mining ships out there again that are fun to mine with, fun to support with, but also fun to hunt. And right now there are just not enough rorquals out there, and we need more rorquals.
Totally agree.
And that's a combination of the cost of replacing ships, but also the incentive, whatever the English word is for that, incentivizing people to actually go out there and undock big ships. And on the Oracle side, we haven't been able to achieve that. And I take part of that responsibility, even though we've been telling CCP, you've been part of that. We've been telling CCP a lot to, hey, we gotta incentivize people to do that, because it's such a big part of that, of people's memory of the great times of Eve.
Yep.
Is mining an oracles, undocking oracles and destroying oracles is such a big part of it that we have to get back there. So that I would say that's part 2. And then part 3, there's Eve has come such a long way that sometimes I play the game and I compare it to other games and I feel like, wow, for a 23-year-old game, it looks fantastic, right? And it's so deep, and there's so many things you can do. But on the other hand, there are a myriad of things that we can still fix, or that are just everyday things that would make everyone's life easier, and for some reason that take forever to implement on the Eve side. So I can give you an example, like selling from corp hangers, right, or delivery hangers. Being able to buy several buy orders at once at the price they're listed. That's something we achieved this year, right? Or being able to move all of the extraction heads at one time on PI. Like, those are little things that just would fix so much in Eve, but that take a long time and a lot of advocating to implement over time.
Yeah.
And so there are little things that I'm whittling away at that at some point I want to implement.
So we're going to switch a little bit to my campaign, which is getting players to undock. And I have a few questions here because I'm curious about how each candidate is going to answer and think about these. The first one is, what do you think is the biggest barrier today of new players undocking?
For focusing on new players, the answer is different than experienced players. So if you're asking for new players, so for new players, I think it's mostly just being afraid of loss. So any new player coming in, I think from other games you're taught that dying is terrible or losing stuff is terrible, and in Eve those things don't come back. And you might have heard about Eve, and people keep telling you like, oh my god, if you lose it, it's gone, etc., etc. So I think you have to, it's up to us as a community, as veteran players, to make sure that people come into Eve and they understand it's okay to lose everything all the time, right? And it's completely fine to, in the first days of what you're doing, to be completely clueless and to just try things and to go out there and do things. Because I think the worst thing that we can do is to tell people, oh, don't go here, you're going to lose that, or don't do that, that is too dangerous for new players. Because that's how we, I think, breed very, very careful players that will never unlock the full potential that is Eve. And that's coming from someone that doesn't unlock a lot, right? I am a station player, but that doesn't mean that I've never in my Eve career gone through that and undocked. So I've lived in wormholes. I've lived in several. I am today part of several nullsec alliances. I have experienced that part of Eve, and for most people, undocking and losing ships and going out there to fight will be the gateway to and them enjoying the game more. And that's what we got to teach them.
So then what do you think, or how do you think fleets play a part in player retention?
Yeah, and as you know, Kishal, from the discussions that we've had in the past on the CSM, I'm actually not a huge fan of NPSI overall as a tool, because to me a lot of times NPSI is a symptom of people not having other reasons to undock, or other reasons or other means to form a fleet and get out there. don't get me wrong, I think NPSI fleets have to be there because they play an especially important role for newbies or for rookies, because they have a very low barrier of entry, and they have a very they have a very supportive infrastructure that will help you understand, okay, this is a fleet, go out there and don't be afraid to lose your ship, et cetera, et cetera. So I just think, I wish that we didn't need so many NPSI fleets, because I wish that there were actual strategic reasons in EVE Online to undock, and there were actually strategic reasons in Corps to undock. And the landscape that we have today is, I don't know, it feels like about half of the fleets out there are either NPSI or are roaming fleets for no reason, that have no objective except the objective of chaos or killing people, which I think is fine. But I'd like the number to be higher of fleets that actually achieve an objective, like Sov related, like ISK making, like actually achieving some sort of goal, because I think that is actually even more rewarding for more players. And I think it's actually easier to understand for players if you are grouping up for a strategic objective, rather than only, oh, we're going to go out and kill whatever we find, which can exist in my world, but I wish it would play a smaller role. And I know you disagree.
Oh, that's a whole different story. If you guys
Yeah.
want to hear Oz and I debate this, let us know. We can set something up.
Yeah.
So then, what tools or features do you think should be added to the game to help improve communities, provide content for their players? And when I say communities, this could be, null set communities, wormhole communities, just any community within EVE.
I mean, probably we probably have too many tools in EVE Online today that people rely on, which, and I'm saying that as a developer of tools in EVE Online, but I wish that we would have more reasons to be in the game, right? So a lot of times I feel like I would like to see more things integrated in the client, at least those things that can be integrated in the client, so that would be less reliance to go out there. For example, nowadays in the game you can't see prices from other regions, which it's hundreds of years in the future. We're traveling at light speed. I don't want we're beaming across the galaxy, but we can't check the price of livestock in domain from the forge, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And I know there's a bunch of regional traders out there just cursing my name right now, because they're saying, you took our jobs, right? But there are some things that I just feel like, come on, like I'd like to spend more than 2 minutes in the client without having to all tap out, right? So that's just on like I'd like to see more added into the game, like for example regional pricing, because I think it would be good for the community to spend a little bit more time in game. And honestly, outside of that, like in terms of what tool would I need to build a community, I think I've got everything I need. We've got amazing discords, I think, for EVE Online. Even my Discord has like 7,000 people on it, which is absolutely insane. You have a massive Discord. I know I've seen your recruitment numbers. And honestly, like I think in terms of community building, community content creation, I think EVE is some of the some of the best I've seen out of any game out there.
So, keeping in mind the summer campaign and Provi, do you think toxicity is keeping people from undocking?
In EVE, of
Mm-hmm.
course, every day. Eve is still a shockingly toxic place. Like there, and I don't know if it's some groups that are especially vulnerable to this, or or a generator of this, but if I see every day on Reddit, I see threads of people posting, oh, look what I read in local chat, and look, look what people are, what racist, slur somebody was throwing at me, etc., etc. I still find it insane, and I know some people are going to call me a pansy for this or whatever, but in my world that's not okay, and that is something that I don't tolerate in my community. It's something that I don't tolerate around me, and it's not something that those are not people that I want to hang out with. And so I see it every day. I think it's a massive problem. I want to be part of fixing that problem, but as you know, even CCP has a fairly like compared to other game company, a fairly laissez-faire attitude towards toxicity. And that's because Eve is considered like a kind of like a haven where scamming is allowed, where robbing is allowed, and people just misinterpret that a lot of times for it's okay to be toxic, and it's not. Like, you can scam people, but that's not toxicity. That's just you're playing the game. But as soon as you're being racist or sexist or whatever, you're crossing lines, and that is a big problem. And I think it's also because we've grown for 23 years as a community, and what was okay in air quotes okay 23 years ago is not okay now, and some people just never grew up around it, and they stayed in their basement yelling.
So, thinking of players in general, not new players or veteran players, what kind of content do you think keeps people logging into the game?
From my experience, so people in Eve, remarkably, they love doing the same thing all over, right? Like in some games nowadays, some games live of, oh, there's a new expansion, new this, new that, and yeah, we have that in Eve. But let's be honest, the expansions are really just patches at this point. Like whoa, we're getting a 2D map. I'm just based on the last the last test on singularity. I'm not saying that's the entire patch. I'm just saying, like, we're used to just, I mean, it feels like a lot of Eve players just go, okay, just leave me alone, just just make the stuff better that we're already doing, because that's why we're here. And so I think what gets people to undock, and what gets people coming back to Eve, is their corp, their friends, their community, and shooting the shit, doing exactly what they've been doing for 20 years or for 5 or however long you've been playing. But I actually don't think it's necessary for CCP to come up with these crazy new contents that are probably going to break stuff anyway. It's probably better to listen to the community and say, look, people like mining and rorquals, and people like killing rorquals. We should probably put all our money onto getting rorquals out there. And that's what I tell CCP when they ask me what they should do, is make capital ships a little cheaper. They're still a little bit too expensive. Let rorquals go out there, give rorquals a reason to go out there, and break a few things on the way, because nothing is worse than people just saying, it's not worth undocking, or it's like, I don't want to undock because I can't do XYZ anymore that I used to be able to do.
So then, how do you think we should start encouraging solo players to get into more group activities? Since, it's the friends that we make along the way, the fleets that keep us logging in.
I think it's a very tough question, and it's a very tough question for me, because I am someone who has tried so many different communities and then ended up making his own community, and still I enjoy the game by myself oftentimes. So but that's because I get to interact on the CSM. I get to talk about Eve all the time with other players because I create content or I'm on the CSM, and so to me that's enough. But when I'm actually playing, I actually really enjoy going out there doing exploration. I like out there just mining by myself sometimes. I like these things, right? But I am not the rule, and I realize that, and so I do think that it's very, very important to get people out there. And I think the best thing we can do, I'm speaking as me as CSM, as content creator, I recommend people and groups all the time because they're not all the same. There are some terrible corps and terrible groups out there that I would never recommend to people. But also when people ask me, and even sometimes when they don't ask me, I send people in the right direction because I know there are good people out there and I know there are good groups, including your group, right? So I've been playing Eve long enough to know where to send people, and I think that's a superpower that all of us veterans need to do all the time. Like advertise, talk about the people doing good stuff in Eve, and just don't talk about, or don't or just ignore the people that are being toxic or that are not nurturing people or that are ripping people off. And so I think the number one thing is recommending the right communities to join.
And if you could ask CCP for one quality of life change,
Mhm.
what would it be?
The other day, so I probably just sell it, like being able to sell directly from delivery containers is my big thing. But that is for me because I do a lot of trading, and sometimes everything gets stuck in the container, and I need to actually fly to all these places and then move the things from the delivery container to the normal container to be able to do anything with it. So that's a big thing for me. But I realize not everyone has this problem. So I think a more general thing would be in terms of quality of life. Uh, I I I have this big thing where if when you sell something on the market and you put in uh, the wrong price. Like let's say you have an item that is worth 1,000,000 ISK and you put in 1 ISK. It will sell it at 1 ISK, right? Like no matter how high the buy order is, like you're gonna get massively screwed because you just messed up. And I think that's a feel bad moment that impacts a lot of people, including new players, that they messed up. And to me, it doesn't matter because I'm very wealthy in EVE Online, but to a new player, if they just got their venture from their new career mission and then they put it on the market and they actually sell it for 1 ISK, even though the buy order, the minimum, the highest buy order was 600K, why not just give them 600K? Like I know it's like somewhere where people are like, oh, bonus. Like I made 600K, but you made 600K of a feel bad moment, and I would change that. I would say that if you're selling something and you accidentally put in a price that is below the highest buy order, it should just sell to the highest buy order at the price that the buy order put in.
Or those of us who accidentally put 1,000 mastered arm accelerators up.
Yeah. I'll still give you. I'll make you a bulk order, a bulk offer, Kishal, for
No,
all of your
no. I'm just gonna put
all of them.
all like 6,000 up at once. See what happens.
I'll
All
be
right.
there. I'll be there.
So we're gonna go ahead and get into some CSM specific questions.
Mhm.
So for CSM19, who did you work with the most, both on CSM and CCP side?
Wow. I mean, that's really, really tough, as you know, because of course I love all my CSM brothers and sisters. On the most recent one, I'm gonna say Drake because Drake has joined me in analyzing the MER a few times. Drake is also, comes from a finance economics background, and I really enjoy analyzing the economy and data with him. And so I have thoroughly enjoyed working with them, even though, almost all of them have been fantastic to work with, and I enjoy discussing with them. But so I'm going to say Drake Idden. He is the technically the Pochvan candidate, but he does, talk a lot, think and talk a lot about different parts of space. On the CCP side, I mean, like, I'm going to say Okami, CCP Okami. He came in new, and he came in with an open mind, and he immediately started talking to the community and actually kept it up for an extended period of time. So I respect that a lot. So I'm going to say CCP Okami.
Cool. So, if you make it back onto the CSM, what other candidate types do you think are needed after looking at 18 and 19?
So, I mean, this is an easy one because I think you didn't make it on, and then also Mike Azariah didn't make it on, and so clearly we didn't have the high sec new player experience cover this time around. And I do think that we could have switched one of the others out for that perspective, and that would have been a positive change. So I really do think that I hope that you or another rookie perspective candidate makes it on, because I think it's big. I think it's needed, because you have 12 people talking from a more or less veteran perspective, and then everybody appreciates it, etc. But like, honestly, like I played the tutorial 2 weeks ago because I was preparing a new character for a challenge that I'm doing, and again learned so much from the process and gave CCP feedback. But I think it's very important that somebody keeps an eye on the new player experience.
So, if there would have been someone who worked with new players or high sec in general, would we still have fobs and lancers in high sec and have high sec be a little less safer, or would that have probably just happened anyways?
No, I mean, I don't know. You tell me if you would have tried to try to prevent that, but I don't think so. I don't want high sec to be safe. I mean, and I'm somebody that spends a lot of time at high sec, but I don't think that the definition should be safe. I think high sec, there should be consequences, and I'm all for. Oh, I sounded very German there. There will be consequences. I don't think there needs to be like a prevention of conflict in high sec. I do think that they can make the Concord reaction quicker, or make it more fierce, or whatever. But I think the day that you're 100% safe in high sec is the day Eve dies.
Yeah, when the last big patch came out and they took those out in the name of making high sec safer, that was really kind of blindsided because we're all trying to teach new players that high sec is not safe.
Yeah.
So that messaging, yeah, that was kind of weird.
I mean, today, did you see the Crimson Harvest announcement today? There's
Yeah,
apparently no 90% drop anymore.
yeah,
Like, they took that out, which is like a high sec buff, you know? And
but
I don't agree with it. I mean, besides the fact that I've gotten about 25 hate messages today, how I could allow this to happen. But I don't agree with it. I think Crimson Harvest, 90% loot drop. Let's go. Let's
yeah,
create some chaos. And I say this as someone who doesn't go out there and kill. I run freighters. I get the short end of the stick of this, but I know people love it,
yeah,
and things are happening. So I don't want safe space.
yeah. That was definitely one that of course, it makes me happy on the incursion side because that's the bane of my existence for the last
True.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
But
I
on
just
the other
wish it went
side,
there. Yeah.
now people are gonna log in less this month, so Yeah.
I had so many people literally looking forward to it.
Yep.
And this and yeah, I know the incursion thing, but on the other hand, like you can run incursions like say safer 11 month out of the year, and
Yeah.
if it's that 1 month, just if you can't beat them, just join them, you know.
Yeah. And that's pretty much it. That's what we
Yeah.
do. We roll with it. But yeah, that very interesting decisions.
It's fun for NPSI. It's lots of fun for NPSI.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So, what has been your approach for demonstrating player support for issues?
I think I was the only one in the only one that in the last 2 years, in both years, ran community surveys on what are your issues, tell me what's the problem, so that I can bring it to CCP. So I think one big thing has been just market research in my own community, and then I have a very, 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 very large Discord server. On my Discord server, I have a channel for CSM feedback, and people post a lot. People post so many things, and people write to me directly as well. So I take those issues, I sort them for myself, because not everything that people tell me I think is a good idea. So I don't pass anything on. Don't be don't be fooled. Also, people that write to me, don't be fooled. But I have a huge amount of channels that I have the big advantage of being fairly known, because I'm not only on the CSM, but I'm also a content creator. So people just bombard me with stuff, right? So yeah.
How do you how have you been handling issues from the other CSM and CCP that you disagree with?
Yeah, there's been tons of those, and I always try to bring data, and I try to understand where they're coming from. So I'll give you an example. I mean, you will know that from term as well, Kishal, is projection has always been a massive deal on the CSM, or for the past 2 years at least, where I'm on, because projection is something where especially low sec and null sec don't agree. Like they typically don't agree. And there we always try to find the lowest common denominator, try to find, okay, what can we agree on, so that we can bring suggestions to CCP. And that is something where I have no problem taking a back seat, right? Where I say, okay, I'm not going to tell low sec and null sec how to think about projection, or I'm not going to try to convince them, because they're living this every day. And me, as a mostly economics guy, high sec trader, industry guy, I'm not going to tell them there. But on the same token, if we're talking about ISK sinks or ISK faucets, and we're talking about the 20 trillion that were at some point, printed by C5 and C6 wormholes, or the amount of is that is printed in Pochvan, that in the last few years we've had these points where we needed to fix these things to save the economy. That is where I go in with data and say, look, guys, like I know you guys want to make money, but you've got to understand that if we keep this up, it's going to break the economy. And that's been fairly successful. I don't think what you can't do is you can't try to win every single argument and tell people, that your opinion matters most for every case, and that, that I think is stupid. I think you got to pick your battles, and you got to stick to where your area of expertise is, and then I think you can go a long way.
Well, since you brought it up, projection, do you think that the projection problem is solved, or does CCP still have more work on it? 'Cause this was a problem. Well, it's been a problem for many CSMs, but I know it was a really big issue in ours back in 18.
Yeah, I I know it's not solved, because people aren't happy with it. Like, I don't think with the current state, I don't think there's a single CSM that says, oh, the way it is right now, it's is my favorite way of doing it. So I think that even now, with recent discussions, without going into too much details due to NDA, I think that even now there's good discussions going on. there are common viewpoints being formulated, and I think that we have a good chance of actually bringing forward some solutions that would make things better and that would make more people, not all, but more people happy with the system. And so the answer is no. I think we can get very, very much closer to solving the issue by the next CSM
Cool.
term.
That's good to hear. What is unfinished from your last term or terms?
Lots of things unfinished. I think Metanox moon drills they don't feel good right now. I mean, they feel good for, I guess, the people generating passive income in nullsec, but they broke something in the economy. They broke pyrite as a mineral. They broke R4 moon minerals as a resource because it's way oversupplied, and they brought a lot of the relationship of different materials, especially moon materials, to each other out of whack. And so that is something that we definitely have to fix, address, whatever. We're trying, and CCP has made a few fixes recently that went into that direction, but none of them have really solved the issue. So I feel like this whole passive moon mining issue is something that we're in the middle of and we have to fix. It's just, oftentimes CCP introduces something and then, they do 1 or 2 rounds of fixing things, but if it doesn't get fixed, sometimes it just gets forgotten. And then it's our job to just keep on bringing it on to the forefront. The other thing that is not finished, I think, is exploration. Right now, exploration sites, I don't know if you do exploration, but there was a solve upgrade that introduced new exploration sites to null, and they're just all over the place now. There's so many that it's not really exploration anymore. It's more like whack-a-mole, and it doesn't feel like exploration anymore. You're just sitting in 2 or 3 systems and just like are spamming these exploration sites. It's more like farming now than it is exploration. And one, it feels bad, and two, it has crashed salvage prices completely, which, yes, has positive side effects. But on the other hand, for new players, exploration is not nearly as profitable as it used to be. And I used to think exploration is a fantastic new activity for newbies because you can do, the entry barrier is low, the ISK investment is low, and the payoff sometimes was big. And so that, like, exploration is just, it's messed up right now. And so Metanox is something, and exploration is another thing that we are in the middle of. We messed it up. We haven't fixed it.
So the last question before the final question is, what question do you think should be asked to CSM candidates that never gets asked in these interviews?
I mean, since we're in the CSM specific question, portion of the show, I would say, I would ask, was it worth it? I mean, I would ask CSM incumbents, do you regret having gone onto the CSM?
So do you?
No, clearly not, because I was reelected. But I have to say also, it's sometimes it can be very exhausting. It's CSM is what you put in. You can be you can be very active, you can be very passive, and I think most CSM people are sometimes active, sometimes passive, depending on the topics at hand and their real life situation. And everyone understands that real life comes first, but then in the end, you were elected to the CSM, so there's like a sort of like a minimum expectation. And I want to say to everyone that everyone that is on the CSM, or let's say 90% of the CSMs that I've gotten to know, and I haven't gotten everyone to know really well, is really putting a lot of effort in and is really trying their best. And the sometimes the things I hear about CSM, like people are playing favors to their alliance, or people are only doing something for themselves, or people are just there for publicity. Like I haven't gotten to know that as true. I respected highly the time and effort that people put in. The amount of flack you sometimes get for being on there, whether it's feedback or oh, you didn't do this, you didn't do that, is harsh. And so I don't regret it, but don't take that lightly. And sometimes go thank your CSM candidate, because it's not always like rainbows and butterflies. It's not. It's a job. It's a side job.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, final statement. Why should players vote for you? And why should my communities put you on our ballots?
So for me, the number one reason you should vote for me is because of my track record, I would say. I mentioned a few things here, but I have shown that I can stabilize the economy when ISK faucets and sinks were out of whack. CCP turned to the CSM, and especially to me, to say, what are the pain points? What do we have to fix? And I feel like I was very, very successful at that. Yes, somebody running a C5 wormhole 2 years ago, they probably don't like me because I took a little bit of their money, and possibly some Parchment people, some Parchment multi-boxing bots also don't like me very much. But overall, I fixed a big part of the economy, not alone, but I was a big part of it. And that's why. And if you agree with that, then you should vote for me for that. Some other things I mentioned today, I am for cheaper capitals. I am for bringing Rockles back into space. I have a long list of quality of life improvements that I'm trying to push through. You can see what they are on my Discord. But most of all, I love this game and I love this community, and I get along with a ton of different people and communities here. And ask anyone on the CSM or other content creators or other players that have played with me, I approach this very professionally. I don't slack off. I take this as a serious side job, and I am absolutely honored representing the player base in front of CCP, and that's why you should vote for me again.
And where
that's why you should put me on the ballot.
And where can people find you on the internet?
The easiest place is theoz.space. Theoz.space is my website. That's where you find all the links to my socials and my Discord. But more importantly, I also put a dashboard out there where you can see the latest market updates every day. Not the boring, that's the price of Plex, but it's a dashboard that shows you these are the 10 items that moved the most this week. These are the 10 that went up the most, down the most. These are the 10 in low supply, and all other shenanigans that you could want to know about the market. So theoz.space.
And the very big question, do you answer your Eve mail?
No. I mean, yes, no, sometimes. Like if you want to write to me, definitely don't write to me on Eve mail. And for the simple reason is you get a lot of crazy mail when you're on the CSM, because people know you as a CSM character, and then they just send you weird messages. Like honestly, like I like from harassment to weird shit, right? So like I do read it, and then I try to filter the stuff, and I sometimes answer it. But if you want a quick answer, just find me on any of the big Discords. My name is the Oz everywhere. You can find me. It's very easy to send me a message on Discord, and I typically answer very quickly.
Excellent. Thank you very much for coming and doing the interview. Looking forward to seeing your other interviews, and we will talk soon.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Kishal, and hope to see you on CSM20.